sometimes I lose my mind and I'm like, we need a bigger house. We can't do this. This is not working for us. And he's like, well, a bigger house is just going to be a bigger mess. A bigger house is just going to have more stuff. And I'm like, oh, you're right. Accurate. You're right. Like, if I can't manage my systems in my smaller home, maybe we just need less stuff. Right? Otherwise, and I just have a bigger house that's going to take more time to clean. And we're going to have more stuff in it that we don't need.
Yeah, that's going to cost you more money.
So exactly. So before you're like, oh, I need more money to fix my problems. I need more of this to fix. Like, just truly evaluate. And for me, it was, I have enough money and it's not fixing my problem, because I will always be in survival mode and I will never be on my kid's schedule and I will never have flexibility.
Yeah. And no amount of money is going to fix that flexibility or the time.
Right? So money wasn't my problem. So, we were able to evaluate that.
Welcome to Becoming Tantalum with me, Megan Bonnell. Discover your brightest self in a journey of transformation and resilience. Let's embark on this path together, starting now.
Hey, lovely listeners, and welcome back to another episode of Becoming Tantalum, the podcast where we blend a little bit of raw truth and a dash of humor and a whole lot of scientific nerdiness to help you become the best version of yourself. We turn dreams into actions and actions into success. And I'm your host and life coach, Megan Bonnell. And today we're diving into a topic that's super close to my heart, and that is being rich. Not necessarily in the money sense. So to help me unpack this juicy topic, I have a fabulous guest with me. She is a mom of 3 and married and lives a life that is rich in all the best ways. I'm going to be honest, this episode might be a little longer than normal because I love chatting with this woman and I want to make sure that you get all of the good nuggets that she has to give you. So hang in there. It'll be worth it. But before we get to her, let me set the scene for you. I remember growing up, I was always so curious and interested in money. Not sure that I had my head wrapped around it all, but it was flowing through my thoughts just almost constantly. And I can remember thinking that I wanted to be rich, just have all the monies. And in fact, I used to pray at night that my house wouldn't burn down, super random childhood fear, and that we would win the lottery. I was convinced that that was the secret to happiness. Now, the funny thing is that I was happy. There was nothing wrong going on with me, but I could see unhappiness around me and I wanted to fix that. And I was convinced that money was the secret to that. Well, then through many years since then, the concept of money has become super convoluted because I knew lots of people that had all the monies and weren't happy. And how could that be if that was the case? And so how could it be that money is the secret to happiness and yet so many people that I knew had a lot of money and they were miserable? And so fast forward to my adult years and that still rings true. Some of my happiest friends and acquaintances are money poor, if you will. And some of my most challenged and miserable friends and acquaintances are incredibly wealthy. And so this isn't to say that everyone that is money rich is miserable, of course. And it's not to say that everyone that is money poor is happy. But obviously, blatantly obviously, money is not the secret to happiness. And so I needed to know what exactly that secret was. So I went right to work on what is it that makes people happy if it isn't money, if it isn't being rich. And so I'm going to go off on just a little tangent here, as if I didn't just go off on a tangent, but let's talk about me as just a wee little lass. So growing up, I always felt incredibly rich in life. Like, let me make that clear. We were not poor, but we were far from being rich with money. But I remember taking long trips with my family, and I remember being able to participate in all the activities and the sports that we wanted to do and really not wanting for much of anything at all. And it seemed as though all the fun things that we wanted to do, we could do. And all the memories we wanted to make, we could make. And all the activities we wanted to be involved in, we were involved in. And my parents made all of that possible. And at the time, I didn't understand our money situation at all. But it didn't seem, to me at least, that we were hurting for it. Now, as an adult, I understand that growing up, we did not have money by the bunches, like by far. What we did have, like my sister and I, were parents that used their resources wisely to fill our life with the memories and the experiences and the activities and the things that they thought were actually fulfilling and important to our family. And that made it so that I didn't want for anything. It seemed like I had it all because they taught me how to be grateful for the things that we did have. And they allocated all of our available resources wisely towards the important things in life. So to give you an idea of our financial situation growing up, both of my parents had jobs as teachers. And we all know that teachers don't make millions and millions of dollars. I learned that they purposefully, though, chose that profession, both of them, for a couple really solid reasons. One, they made enough, right? Like it's a decent living. But two, they were time rich, which meant that they could spend that time with my sister and I. And they used all of those two limited resources that they had, the money and their time, wisely so that they allowed us to experience all the things in life that they found to be important. I actually love the term rich. If you look it up, one definition that you'll find is plentiful and abundant. Notice that there's no mention of money in that in any way, shape, or form. There's no mention of the size of your house or the make of your car or the items that surround you, just plentiful and abundant. And that is exactly what our life consisted of growing up. We were plentiful and abundant in our family relationships, in our trips, in our activities, in our friends, in our time. So we, growing up, by all means, were rich. Now, I'm not telling you to go out and quit your high-paying job or close your incredibly successful business so that you can live a better life. Well, maybe I am, if that's what's going to serve you best, right? But what I am saying is that maybe redefining rich is something that you could look into in your quest to being rich. Money isn't what leads to happiness. Can it help? For sure, obviously. But there are far more foundational aspects of life that have to be tended to than your bank account. So perhaps you are money rich, and if so, that's amazing. But what if you don't feel rich in life? Maybe there's some allocation changes of your resources that need to be made. Is it possible that you need to dedicate more of your resources to the facets of your life that are most fulfilling? So how are you using your time and your money and your focus? Is that in line with what's most important to you? If you maybe need to do a little bit of reallocating, then spend a little bit of time thinking about what's important to you and how you are allocating the resources that you have. I'll give you some action steps later to help you with that, but maybe keep that in your mind as you're listening to us today. To give you a little bit more food for thought, I wanted to share with you a wonderful lady who has quite the story. Her name is Jenna. Jenna, come on over here. And when I thought about this topic of having a rich life without necessarily having money rich, she immediately came to mind. So from an outside view, her life, your life, is very family focused and resources are allocated to all of those activities that they love the most. So her kiddos never seem to be in want. They do all kinds of things, all kinds of fun, amazing times. And it all seems pretty grand. On top of that, I personally know that she just made a very bold and brave decision that is actually costing her some income. Eek, right? Like we all go the other way, right? We don't want to go that way, but it's paying her back in time and flexibility. And so we're going to get to that too. All of that big decision, the cost as well as what she's getting back, she made that decision with her family in mind. So without further ado, here is Jenna. Hey, girl. And thanks for being on the show. I am honored to have you share with us.
Thanks. This is the first for me. I love listening to podcasts, but I've never been on one. So I'm excited to try something new today.
I love it. Well, to all of you that are listening, I kind of had to convince her to do this a little bit. It might not be right up her alley, but we have a lot to learn from her and her choices in her life. So I wouldn't take no for an answer. So let's dive right in. Jenna, you were here, obviously, right by me, while I was describing the term rich as meaning plentiful and abundant. Would you describe yourselves, your family, as being rich or not? And can you explain why?
Yeah, I would definitely say we are rich. We don't want for anything. We have a home. My family is healthy. We can go out and buy groceries. We turn on our air. We turn on our heat. There's so many things that we have that a lot of people don't have. So I think that we are definitely considered plentiful and abundant in our life.
I love that. So Let's talk about the internal feeling of rich, because it's one thing to be able to say, like, here's all the things that we can do, but it's another thing to really feel that on the inside. So what does being rich internally, like that feeling, mean to you and your family?
There's 3 things that I think make me feel rich in my life. The first I would say is being loved and having love. I also think that feeling safe and feeling secure in my life and how we live our life is important as well.
Man, when you think about things on a very simple level, like the things that really fulfill us, how many times do people, if you're like, are you happy? Why are you happy? How many times do people say like, well, I'm loved, I'm safe, and I'm secure? Like, never. I love that. I love it. You and your family obviously are managing to live this life that feels rich without perhaps being money rich necessarily. So can you tell us how you've used your resources wisely to create this rich and fulfilling life that you guys have?
Yeah, I think my answer to this might be one that a lot of people wouldn't think of. Okay. For my husband and I think one of our resources we've used really well is communication. From the get-go, when we got married, we knew that we wanted to live our life a certain way. Now, that way does require an income. It's not free by any means, but we went into our life together with a very realistic view of what was important to us, but we also knew our career paths we were in. Like, we knew our money resource was not unlimited by any means. We both had decent careers. We do get raises every year, nothing significant, but we knew we weren't going to be millionaires, right? We knew that we had to be wise with our financial choices. And a big conversation we have all the time is really evaluating the term needs versus wants.
Ooh.
Yeah. So what do we need and what do we want? Obviously, your needs have to be met. You have to have food, shelter, those kinds of things. But then when it comes to what we want in life, what is most important to us? So this has come with a lot of time and a lot of sacrifices for us. When we started dating, so a lot of our time together when we met was spent at the river, at Glamis. Like, we spent a lot of our beginning time together. We were friends first for several years before we started dating. And the time we spent together was at these places, camping, boating, doing all this stuff. It is what we truly loved. Now, I also grew up doing those things, and I could never see my future and having a family and not doing those things. So we knew right away, like, that's what we wanted to continue to do. However, we knew that because our money resources were not endless, that in order to do those, we had to make a lot of wise decisions with our finances. Does everybody want a bigger house? Does everybody want the nicest car, or the nicest boat, or the nicest whatever it may be? Yeah, but realistically, we didn't have to have the nicest of things to still have a really fun life and be able to create those memories with our family. So we started off, and we were always great at this, right? We hit our
learning curve,
bumps in the roads, and we made a couple decisions here and there that probably weren't the best, but for the most part, we knew that we had to sacrifice in some areas in order to live the life we wanted and have those experiences and have that, ultimately time together as a family.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the biggest things is prioritizing what are our needs, what are our wants, and then our time. We've also really evaluated, there's been opportunities in the past where, my husband probably could work in a different city and make more money. I could probably take on extra things at my job and make more money. But was that worth it to us? Is it worth it to have a commute? Is it worth it to take away that time from the family? We're also very blessed in our schedules, and we don't have, opposite schedules of working nights and working days. We don't want to sacrifice that just to make more money. So those are the things we really prioritize as far as resources to get us this life that we have always wanted.
I said it before, but I absolutely love that. And actually, to be honest, I hadn't even thought of like communication or looking at that wants versus needs as a resource. But it is. That's a resource and a tool that keeps you on the same page and keeps you headed towards the same goals and making sure that the choices you're making are in alignment with your priorities. Like that's, look at you teaching me something. That's genius. I love it. So I can say, like, time-wise, y'all do a lot. I mean, you're involved in a lot of things, a lot of fun things, but you always seem to have that on lockdown. Like, it doesn't seem like it's difficult for you to make choices of where you need to be. And I'm assuming that's because you have your priorities in line, right? So there's a lot of people running around with their heads cut off or having FOMO about what they're missing out on or whatever. And I don't ever see that from you. You guys do a lot, and it seems like you are happy to be where you are in the moments that you're there, which is awesome, except for soccer. Oh my gosh. Tangent. We play soccer. We just had a really rough game, but it's okay. But
Too much fun.
Too much fun. Oh, it's so good.
A lot of enough in it.
And then a lot of, all the lethargic. Anyways, but I love that it seems like you have the art of resource allocation really nailed down because of that filter of what do you want? What do you need? Where does our time need to be spent? That money isn't a good switch off for the time that it'll cost. It actually reminds me of a quote by Tony Robbins, and he said, where focus goes, energy flows. And I feel your energy flow. I love it. So I know that you're new to this podcast, but I'm going off on a little scientific tangent. So I always include just a few results that I've gathered from research that I do about my topics. And in this case, there's been a lot of research in positive psychology that shows that spending on experiences rather than on material stuff tends to lead to greater happiness and life satisfaction. It's about creating those memories and moments that really enrich your life, right? Would you say that spending it on experiences and not stuff rings true for your family?
Absolutely. That's a very easy answer for me.
I love that. So I have a question for you. We live, both of us, all of us, in a very hustle bustle kind of world. And it's definitely focused, I would say, on materialistic things. You see it all the time, right? People have like new cars and bigger houses, and you're on social media and all that. They have all the nice things, and it's all organized and pretty little things that they bought, right? So how did your balance of understanding what is important in life and not the big houses and the fancy cars, how did that come to be?
Now I'll try to keep this short and sweet because this started definitely in my childhood. So I grew up, like I said, we went boating, we went camping, we had a motorhome, we lived in the mountains, we went snowboarding. Like, we had so many great experiences. Very fortunate to have my mom worked very little. I remember a few times, like, she had some part-time jobs here and there when we started school, but there are 4 kids in our family, so very busy. We played sports, we did cheer, we did this and that. We had an amazing life. And yes, there were times when I noticed, oh, these kids have designer clothes and I don't. Or I'd ask for something and they'd tell me no, which what parent doesn't do that? So there were times when, I wanted something and I didn't get it, but our life was very abundant. Little did I know that we probably would have been classified on the poorer end of things. I know, like, we had free and reduced lunch at school. My dad was self-employed. So he did a lot of, construction work in the winter in the mountains. There wasn't enough work for him. So he would plow driveways and do snow removal. And he was always a very hard worker. So we made ends meet. I know my mom has told this story before of, like, one Christmas they couldn't afford Christmas presents. And, they were just beside themselves, like, crying. And someone from the church actually dropped off presents on our doorstep. So we had something to open on Christmas morning.
But did you know that as a kid?
I had no idea. I mean, I had no idea that these things that I learned later in life were going on. To me, we had an amazing life. And my parents were very present, especially my dad being self-employed. Mm-hmm. Like, he had a very flexible schedule. My mom, like I said, I remember her working, like, sometimes while we were in school, but for the most part, they were there. So my parents were very present. They were very involved, and we had everything we needed. So fast forward to high school, we moved. My parents did become a little bit more well off as far as, like, finances go, or at least it seemed. We built a house, like a beautiful house. My dad built it himself. I was a sophomore in high school at this time. all of my older siblings had gone away to school or the military. And so it was just me. And we seemed to have a lot of stuff. Right?
Okay.
We had a beautiful brand new home. We had nice cars. You know, they got me a car. I was great. I loved it. Right? We still had all the boats and all the things. We had a vacation home. We kind of seemed to have everything. And then 2007 hit. And for those who are not familiar with that time, it was a very, very bad time for people who are self-employed, especially in the construction industry.
Oh, yeah.
So basically overnight, my dad and my family lost all of their income, which 2007 also happened to be the year I graduated and went to college. So guess my age. But that was the year I went to college. Throughout the next course of the 3-4 years, my parents basically lost everything. They lost their home. They lost it all. My dad also struggled physically, so he had to have spinal surgery, and being in construction, it's a very physical job.
Yeah.
So not only did he not have work, even if he had work, he couldn't have done it to do it. Yeah. They, sorry, Mom and Dad, if you're listening, I'm telling you this. So, oops. So they ended up, moving in with my sister and brother, and it just was very eye-opening to me, especially seeing that I was at a very pivotal age. Yeah. Like, I'm in college. I'm trying to figure out what I want to do with my life. I just watched them. Not only did they lose all their stuff, they almost lost their marriage.
Because of the stress.
It was stressful. Like, I would come home and see the toll that it took on them.
Yeah.
So I watched that, and it was very apparent to me that, wow, this stuff did not fix their problems. We lived a great life. Like, when things were simpler, when we had less stuff, when we had less, burdens financially, our life was great. In one way, I feel like this is kind of a negative, but it almost instilled in me a fear of debt, because my parents had all this stuff, and had they have managed it wisely, it wouldn't have been a problem, had they have had a savings or a retirement, and they didn't have those things. And so it really scared me in a way that forced me to educate myself moving forward. Like, I don't want to get into debt. I don't want to make financial choices where if, some circumstance in my life changes overnight, then I lose everything. Right. So lots of financial fear.
Yeah.
Which might not necessarily be a good thing, but initially for me it was, because I didn't go out and buy the newest car. I didn't go out and get student loans. I worked really hard to pay for college. I tried to not get myself in hot water financially. So that started, I guess, long story short, from childhood, and seeing that perspective and having that like upfront view of, you may look like you have everything, but you might not. So I really entered into my career and then my marriage with like, I don't want to be in this position. Mm-hmm. I don't want to wake up every morning wondering like, are we going to pay our bills today? Or living month to month or paycheck to paycheck, right? I'd rather have less and not have that stress. So that, I think, started me off on the path of, I don't need all the things, but how do I not make those same mistakes that I saw my parents make?
Right. Well, and you could have a bigger, nicer house and a bigger, nicer car. And you could have all of those things, but the things that are important to you, you already have, right? You're doing all the things that you guys want to do. Your kid plays travel baseball nonstop, and you have a home and you go to the river all the time. Like, you're doing all of those things without outspending your means.
Yeah. Sometimes I do compare. Like, sometimes I do find myself like, oh man, like this person's house is bigger and nicer. This person's car is nicer. This person's boat is nicer. And I can be a little bit of a comparison person. And
oh, interesting. So this is now pulling on my little life coach string.
Yeah.
So what do you do when you have those moments where you're like, there's this bigger, there's this newer, there's this nicer?
I look at how much it would cost me to have those bigger and nicer things. And I'm like, not worth staying up at night and not being able to sleep, or not being able to put my kid in travel ball, or not. I just look at the opportunity cost of it. And I'm like, well, yes, we could have this, but then do I want to not be able to pay for my kids' travel ball? No. Do I want to not like stress out about the gas it's going to take us to go to the river? Like, no, I don't want to be penny pinching, and I don't like, it's not worth it. And also I gotta give credit to my husband because he is the best at this. Like, he plays devil's advocate. Like, he's so good at it. He's like, well, do we need that?
I love it.
Even for small things. I don't even want to admit how many times an Amazon package has showed up. And he opens it and he's like, do we need this? Like, you don't have X, Y, and Z that could fulfill the same purpose? Like, another trip to Kohl's. So, oh my God. Okay. Like, it may have been $5. It may have been $50. But he's very good at not making, these quick decisions, especially financially. Yeah. So he for sure balances me out in those aspects.
Well, and I could imagine that could be annoying. Like, it's only $5. But are you on the same page with that? Like, when he does that, are you like, no, you're right. Like, you're right. I don't.
Yeah, no. And there'll be times where I'm like, yeah, I need it. Yeah. And there'll be times when he's like, yes, I need this, or I want this, or like, we can afford this. Just let me have it. You know?
Yeah.
No, so by no means does he ever say like, return that, you don't need it. But he's very good at like, but do you like really honestly evaluate if you need this thing, or if the kids need this thing, or if,
without versus need.
Yeah,
I love that.
So
what a good, I mean, that was a lot, right? Like that whole story, but what a good example, I think, because if money was really what was required to have happiness, then you would have been clear from the very beginning as a kid that you didn't have money and that you weren't happy, or you would have thought that you would have known you were rich because you were happy, right? If there was that direct connection. But the fact that you had no idea that there was a money struggle until there was a big money struggle, right? Yeah. That tells you that there's just much more fulfilling things in life if you use your resources wisely. It's funny because I remember my parents always being around. Like, they volunteered in school and they were coaching my teams, and they were at every game, every play, like whatever I did, whatever my sister did, like they were always there. And that was really important to me. I remember that. I remember them being a big part of our life and never missing events. And then I also remember some of my friends whose parents were like never around, or they could never go on vacation. We took off all summer long when I was a kid. Like, we literally would leave the day school got out and not get back for like, back then, summer was like 16 weeks or whatever, like, and wouldn't come back for like ever. And we just toured around the country. Like, I remember that stuff. But then I also remember my friends whose parents were never there and could never take trips. And they had a bigger house, and they had nicer stuff, and they had nicer cars. And I remember thinking, even as a kid, but your mom's not at your game, right? Like, I remember thinking of what was important to me. Like, but my mom and my dad are always here. I don't remember necessarily as a kid ever worrying about money or there being a payoff for money or happiness. I just remember that it was all fulfilled. What I take out of that story the most is that big houses, fancy cars, like, they're all nice, but it's not worth it if there's a cost. And then, so that's a choice that you have to make, right? I mean, you could afford the bigger, better, nicer, newer, whatever, but you look at that cost and it's not worth that. And personally, I'm sure that you do too. I have a ton of friends that financially are like stressed because they bought all the things. Yeah. Living, I wouldn't even say that some of them are living outside their means, but like barely living in them. And don't have savings and don't have retirement. Like, so if something did happen and all of a sudden he or she couldn't work or whatever, like they would lose it all. Like, that stress is totally not worth it, I don't think. Okay, so way earlier, we mentioned that you made a really big and bold, brave decision. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I left my traditional teaching job. I resigned a few months ago, and I am going to an online charter school. So still working in education, but I'm moving to an online charter school that will give me more flexibility, more time, drop off my kids at school, pick them up, volunteer in their classroom. If they're sick, I can take them to the doctor. And it's definitely coming at a financial cost. So it's a big financial cost. It is what some people make in a year, honestly. Like the pay cut, some people, that's their salary. So that's a chunk. It's a chunk, and it took a lot of time to make the decision and evaluate the decision. So back story.
Yeah.
Let me backtrack a little bit. Yeah, I've taught a traditional high school chemistry for about 12 years now. And this last one, I was at for 10 years. Got married, had 3 babies, the normal life progression.
Mm-hmm.
And when I had my first kid, no problem. Like, I never saw myself being a stay-at-home mom. That's why I love teaching. I wanted to have that schedule that aligned with my kids' schedule. Great. Like, perfect. So that's why I became a teacher. And then had my first kid, went back to teaching, no problem. Didn't know what to do with the baby. Honestly, I was like, I need to get back to my high school. I don't know what to do with you. Yeah. So I had one kid. I was like, no, I can't be a stay-at-home mom. Like, this is too hard. So then had my second kid. And when I had my second kid, I was like, I'm like, I could do this motherhood thing. Like, I really enjoyed my time home with her. And then fast forward a couple of years, we had a third kid that was not quite as planned as the other two.
Okay.
So the third kid was a little more of a curveball in her life. And as soon as I found out I was pregnant, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to manage another kid. Like, I have 2, and we're doing okay. They were, when he was born, they were 7 and 4 at the time.
So in school.
And so they were, in school. We were just like dipping our toes into sports and gymnastics and extracurriculars. And this third baby really just threw me for, I always kind of had times of stress with the other 2, like feeling like I'm just living my life subpar. Like, I can't be the best wife. I can't keep my house clean. I can't keep up with X, Y, and Z, like whatever it may be. Like, I had moments, but I feel like I could always bounce back from that.
Yeah.
But this third one was like, nope, definitely not. We figured out how to I took a whole semester off. So I didn't work the first 7 months of his life, which was amazing, but also emphasized the point that I'm missing out on a lot. I'm even just the ability to take my kids to school and pick them up. Like, and I volunteered in their classroom, and I realized all these other parents know my kids' names. Like, all these other parents know my kids, and I don't know who any of these people are, and they've gone to school with them for 2, 3, 4 years.
Right.
It's like, man, I'm missing out on a lot more than I realized. So that started the ball rolling of me really evaluating, like, is this job worth the sacrifice of my kids and my family and getting these experiences with them growing up? So when I went back to work, I mean, it was instant that I was like, I cannot do this long term. Like, I can't.
Yeah.
I wish I could manage it all. Some people are amazing with time management. Some people, like, it looks like they literally can do it all and like not sleep and still function. I don't know how you do that. I'm the kind of person where I think, like, okay, when the kids go to bed, I'm going to do the dishes and X, Y, and Z. And no, I shut down at 9 o'clock. I cannot function after the kids go to bed. I'm a morning person.
Yeah.
Like, if I get up and do it in the morning, great. But if I put something past till after they go to bed, absolutely not. It is not going to happen. So,
which, as a teacher, your mornings are probably not full of cleaning and getting the things organized already. It's getting kids ready and getting to work.
Yeah. It's like a marathon, especially with 3 kids. So I just realized really quick, and I remember specifically, I was in a classroom with one of my teacher friends in the morning, and I was just bawling. I was like, I can't spend my kids' childhood.
She's not crying.
I can't be in survival mode. Like, I can't. This is not what I want my kids' childhood.
Yeah.
So I tried to do the best I could to manage it. And on paper, we made plenty of money. Yeah. X, Y, and Z. I figured it all out. And we made a lot of money. And we didn't really need all that money. And it didn't matter how much more money I made. Like, it wasn't going to give me the time or the energy or the ability to manage my life in a way that would allow me to be present.
Yeah.
So
that money just cost.
That money, it was still, going, this, dealing with other people's kids in high school, and just the stress of it. Like, I would be drained at the end of the day.
Oh, yeah.
And then it was, okay, we come home, we run to baseball, we run to gymnastics, we run to this lesson, we run to that lesson. Oh, now we're home at 7, 8, 9. Okay, what about dinner?
Stuff their faces.
Yeah. So again, evaluating what was important, and yes, we need money, we need to pay our bills, but at the same time, what I needed was time. Like, I needed to be able to manage my life. Like, and we talked about, like, well, what if we hire a house cleaner? We looked at things like, we have extra money doing this job, but I don't think I can use that in a way that's going to give me more time, allow me to do what I wanted to do. Like, I again don't want to feel like I'm in survival mode in this pivotal moment in time where my kids are young and they can never get their childhood back, and they can never, I can never relive this with them.
No.
When they graduate, when they don't want me around anymore in 10, 15 years, like, cool, I'll go make more money. I'll go back to teaching. I can do X, Y, and Z. But right now, the only thing that you cannot buy is time. So we talked about it, and we crunched the numbers, and we have had to make a couple sacrifices for it because it's a hefty pay cut. But so, like, we didn't have that much extra money, but my husband sold his truck and bought a cheaper truck, and as much as we don't have a payment, and we have now extra savings and things that, like, and thank God for him and his willingness, and he doesn't really care what he's driving at the end of the day. Like, yeah, it's great, everybody wants the nicer car, and people sometimes think we're a little crazy for some of our decisions we make, but at the end of the day, it was, if this is going to allow me to be a better wife and a better mom, then it's kind of a no-brainer. Like, the only reason for me to stay in that job was money. Yeah, it was literally just money. And for me, I feel like once I started teaching, I realized, because I was hearing myself say these things to younger kids, I was hearing myself say things, and I was like, oh, an adult once told me that thing, and I didn't believe them. And now these things are coming out of my mouth, and like,
now I've got adults saying
like, maybe I should listen to these adults. Like, maybe I should listen to these people that are saying these things that have been where I've been. And how often do you hear older people say, like, I wish I would have made more money, or, oh, money fixes everything? No,
never.
No, it's not money. If you're making choices based off money, like, it is the wrong choice.
It just costs you too much.
Yeah, I can always make more money later, but I cannot get time back with my family. So, that's the big decision.
Well, I think that's brave, but also amazing, because as much as it's costing you money-wise, you're getting back so much more, and it's in alignment with what you guys believe in, right? Like, and so I'm sure that was a hard decision, especially like logistically figuring it out. But in the end, it probably was a pretty easy choice once you knew it was possible. Yeah, which is awesome. I love that. I have a quote for you guys. You know that I'm big on quotes. Socrates said that the secret of change is to focus all your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new, which is exactly what you're doing, which I think is amazing. So I wish you luck. I know you're going to do awesome. You do awesome in everything you do. So no brainer. She's going to rock it. So one last question for you. You seem to have achieved what I would say so many people want, as far as like a balanced life, fulfilling, plentiful, abundant, that's focused on your priorities. So what advice, I mean, you had lots of stories and those are good, but what advice can you give to our listeners that might help them achieve that balance and proper focus?
Yeah, the first, well, I don't know if this is advice. I'm going to steal a song from somebody.
Why that sense?
I know. I'm going to sing. Oh, just kidding.
Ready?
I'm not going to sing.
Get the mic
up. So if you've never heard it, there's a song called Bigger House by Dan and Shay. And I mean, literally, I could quote the entire song, and it's amazing, but it truly aligns. Like, they could have written it for me, like for my life, and where we're at in life. So part of the song says, you're never going to fill an empty cup if what you've got's still not enough. And the thing about happiness I've found is it don't live in bigger houses. And honestly, the entire song is amazing. So I highly recommend listening to it. The reason why I love this song is because it really emphasizes the fact that if you can't be content and happy with what you have, then getting more stuff isn't going to fix your problem.
Ding ding.
If you win the lottery, how often do you hear people winning the lottery and it's like, oh, they lost all their money, they're bankrupt,
all the time,
right? So if you can't take the small things you have and A, be content with it, and B, manage it wisely, then when you get more of it, you're just going to do the same thing. Like
100%.
It's not gonna change anything. So before you evaluate, like, is more money going to fix my problem? Is a bigger house going to fix my problem? Look at what you're doing now. And I know you talked about like having systems in place.
Yeah.
So look at what you're doing now and see if the systems you have in place are being used wisely, or if there's no systems, like, start using systems. But again, back to my amazing husband and his ability to play devil's advocate. Sometimes I lose my mind and I'm like, we need a bigger house. We can't do this. This is not working for us. And he's like, well, a bigger house is just going to be a bigger mess. A bigger house is just going to have more stuff. And I'm like, you're right. Like, if I can't manage my systems in my smaller home, maybe we just need less stuff, right? Otherwise, and I just have a bigger house that's going to take more time to clean, and we're going to have more stuff in it that we don't need.
Yeah, that's going to cost you more money.
So exactly. So before you're like, oh, I need more money to fix my problems, I need more of this to fix, like, just truly evaluate. And for me, it was, I have enough money and it's not fixing my problem, because I will always be in survival mode and I will never be on my kid's schedule and I will never have flexibility.
Yeah. And no amount of money is going to fix that flexibility or the time.
Right? So money wasn't my problem. So, we were able to evaluate that. Yeah. The next thing that I would say is one of my favorite quotes. And I don't know if this is, I don't know who said it. But
if you know who said it, listen up. If you know who said it, comment. And
I don't think I'm misquoting this, but it says, the things you take for granted, someone else is praying for. So simple, I have 3 beautiful kids, and I know many people who are fortunate enough to be able to have kids or get pregnant or have more than one or whatever it may be. We have a home. We have a boat. Like, we have so many things that other people don't have. And if you're looking at your life and you're looking at all the things you don't have, you're never going to be happy. If you're looking at what you do have, I mean, it's a night and day difference in mindset. And then I guess the last thing is a little bit of probably, I feel like what society kind of screams at us. So I feel like it's a little counter advice.
Okay.
And I think this also comes down to like evaluating your personality.
Okay.
Because there's so much, pressure to get a side hustle, make more money, have the nicer house, have this, have the car, have whatever. But it's okay to be content. And I feel like sometimes that's looked at on the outside of like, oh, you're lazy. You're not working hard enough.
You're stagnant.
Yeah, just work harder. Yeah. And there's plenty of people who work really hard and don't have a ton of stuff and are perfectly happy with their life. So if you're always like struggling to look at what everybody else has, or like always constantly needing more things, this is where you come in, like how to become content with what you have. But I think it's okay to be content, and not everybody's going to be an entrepreneur. Not everyone's going to be a millionaire. Not everyone's going to, have X, Y, and Z. It just doesn't work that way. So I just recommend people, find a husband like mine that
he's not available though.
I know.
Hers is not available.
No, but really just challenge yourself to try to look at, maybe I want this, but let me focus on what I have. Let me focus on, all the blessings that are in my life. And great. Yeah. And let's work for something better if that's what you want. But you can also be happy in this moment.
You are.
It doesn't always have to be, I'll be happy when this happens. I'll be happy in my bigger house. I'll be happy when I can afford a car. You can be happy where you're at.
Yeah. Okay. So your advice, learn how to manage what you have before you ever even want for more. Obviously, be grateful for what it is that you have. It's okay to be content with exactly where you are, what you have. And actually, that's something that I work. Oh,
don't forget to listen to the song.
And listen to the song, Bigger Houses by Dan and Shay. That's amazing advice, because honestly, I talk to my clients about a few of those things all the time, and we start there. So they have these dreams, these goals, these changes they want to make. But what they don't recognize is that the change of being content, it doesn't come with all of that stuff. It doesn't come with the changes. It comes from within you. And if you can't be content now, you're not going to be content later, whatever their goal is, whether it's money, a change of jobs, a better relationship, like whatever. If you're not content and you can't find fulfillment now, you're not going to have it then either. And then you're just going to be waiting for the next thing to come along, because that change always has to start with you. It's like a mental game, honestly. So I do want to make a disclaimer here, because I feel like I don't want people that do have money to be like, oh, they're telling you get rid of all your money, or that I don't want to give the impression that money is bad. Like, if you have money, if you're rich, that's amazing. And if you're not happy, fix it, right? Like, and if you don't have money, that's also amazing. Like, and if you're not happy, fix it, right? And it's all about where you're allocating your time and your resources, living within your means, and knowing your priorities, knowing what's most important. Because like you said, you could have easily hired a housekeeper and have like put all the Band-Aids on, but that wasn't your problem. And so fixing your problem is huge. All right, so I'm going to give some action items to you guys. So I just have, I think, 3. I do. Number 1, I think it's really important, if you are not feeling happy and fulfilled in life, the first thing I would suggest you do is identify your priorities, right? Like, you guys have them pretty in line. Really think about what truly matters to you. What is important to you? What's important to your family? And check yourself. So you have this list of those things that you decide are most important. Check yourself. Are you allocating your resources, your time, your money, your energy, your efforts to the things that are most important to you? Could I tell what your priorities are by how you're allocating your resources? And if I can't, you probably got to consider some reallocation. That's one of the things that I loved so much about bringing Jenna onto the show, is just knowing her and seeing her life. Obviously, I'm not in your life like day to day, but seeing it from the outside, it's really clear to me what your priorities are. And I think that should ring true for everybody. I should be able to look at your life and understand your priorities. So if you think that your priorities aren't aligned with how you're spending time, money, energy, etc., you need to do some realignment. So that's step number 1. Identify your priorities and really check yourself, right? And then step number 2, maybe you do need to consider where you're investing and make sure that that's in your priorities. And I don't mean investing money-wise. It could be money, but it could be time, energy, right? And so if you feel as though you're not fulfilled, you're not content with what you have, maybe you just need to consider where you're investing, and maybe you're not investing in what's most important. So maybe it's that experiences are more important than things, but are you spending all of your money on your things so you can't do the experiences, right? Maybe it's that time with your family is more important than being out socially. Well, are you saying yes to every social occasion and you're not spending time, with your family? Maybe it's like church. Maybe church is really important to you, but you're constantly taking trips every weekend. And so you have this nagging at the back of your mind. Just really look at the choices you're making, and are those really in line with those priorities that you identified? And then, and I know this has been an action item like quite a few times, but it's that important. And Jenna brought it up too, which I love. Really focus on gratitude. There have been a ton of studies that have shown that focusing on being grateful for, appreciating what you have, completely changes how you feel. And it really is counteracting that human desire to have more, bigger, better, shinier, because that's just human nature. But instead, allowing yourself to just focus, take the time to feel, express your gratitude, your appreciation for the things that you have, because that feeling, being filled up with that gratitude, it feels amazing and can help you then continue on your path of identifying your priorities and making sure you're investing in the right place. I am positive that in your life, you have a ton of things that you could be grateful for. It could be your family. It could be your stability. It could be experiences you have. It could be your health. It could be your house. It could be your kids. It could be whatever. But no matter where we are in life, we always have things that we can be grateful for. So spending time in that, and that will help you feel this richness in life, because you already have it. It's already there. I just want to thank you for being here. And me and the quotes. I love that you truly live what Franklin Roosevelt said. He said that happiness is not in the mere possession of money. It lies in the joy of achievement, in the thrill of creative effort. And you definitely have achieved in your life. Not the money, not that this balance, and the effort that you put forth is amazing. And happiness, feeling rich, feeling plentiful, feeling abundant. So thank you for sharing all of your wisdom and your experiences. It's been really inspiring.
for having me. I really anticipate like getting so emotional.
Oh, I love it.
But it was
I
fun.
love it. Yeah. But,
Chatting.
I think that emotion just shows the real side of why we make the choices that we make. And I'm sure that there's a lot of people out there that also feel some sort of pull, and they're probably trying to band-aid it instead of getting down to, no, what is my problem? And that's what you did. You got down to it. Like, no, my problem is my kids are little. I don't have the time or the flexibility to manage all of that and be with them. Like, there's no amount of money or hiring people to help that's going to fix that. So whatever your problem is, right? Like, you have something that's pulling on you that's making you not feel fulfilled or like you're not on the right path. Find that. Spend the time to figure out exactly what that problem is. So to all of you out there, I hope this episode inspired you to rethink what it means to be rich. Remember, it's plentiful and abundant, and to start using your resources in ways that truly enrich your life, hopefully following that path of your priorities. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and definitely share it. If you think this is going to ring true and help anybody else, please share this with them, because I would love for them to be inspired by Jenna, just as you were. So until next time, keep living your richest life, money or not. And I will see you next week.
Thank you for joining me today. If you want to take all of these concepts and tools to a deeper level, apply them to your life, and watch the transformation happen, I would love for you to join the Tantalum Tribe. That's a monthly membership where all of our community has access to live coaching, self-paced courses, guest coaches, podcast study guides, anonymous question boards, and more. You too can transform your life using the tools and strategies that we have, with accountability built in from our community. I really hope that you join us at tantalumcoaching.com. That's TANTALUM coaching.com. Just click Join the Tribe. I can't wait to see you in there.
An Ironic Media production. Visit us at ironickmedia.com.